Hey everyone, Nick here. So tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm putting together a little bit of a test for PVC bows. Now, the reason why I'm doing this test is because Sir John Fitzralph of the SCA has been fighting to have PVC bows included in SCA target archery for a while now. And because of certain events, there's been a banning of PVC bows in the SCA. So the main issue is that while PVC bows that are well made with good materials will have no problems, the hard thing is determining whether somebody's bow was made well or made with the proper materials, because even a well-made bow with substandard PVC or brittle PVC pipe can be a problem. So this test today is just going to see if duct tape can hold in splinters or shards from PVC if it should ever shatter. So the question is there a way to prevent injury to the shooter or any bystanders just in case anything did go wrong and a PVC bow failed? The test is going to replicate a worst case scenario. I'm going to be building test limbs out of these pipes. And these pipes have been sitting out in my field for 2 years now, in full sunlight, uncovered, and through freezing winters. So that's going to be our poor material. And then once I make these limbs, I'm going to deliberately burn them in the same places so we can replicate the type of damage to each limb. Once I've done that, I'm going to be making another limb out of good sound PVC, and I'm not going to burn this one. This is going to be the counter limb, and I'm going to create a takedown bow so that I can put each one of these test limbs in, and we can see how the method of holding in any pieces or holding the bow together works. Alright, so here's the control limb. I'm going to go ahead and flatten the rest, and then we'll do the recurves. Alright, so I've got my limbs flattened. Now I'm going to be putting in my recurves. And there's one limb finished. Now that all the recurves are done, I've gone ahead and cut V-notches into all my limbs and then rounded off the bases of the limbs so that they'll fit nicely into the handle. Now I'm going to be burning here, here, and here, because most of the time when you get burns, they're on the edges of the limb rather than the back or the belly. So here we go. So now I'm going to stop. You see it's got sort of a glassy look to it, and that means brittle pipe. So I'm going to go ahead, do that to all of the pipes in 3 different places, then we'll see how they do. So I've got my limbs burned. Now it's time to put everything together and test it out. Okay, so here's the first limb. I'm going to be testing this one out with no tape. This is going to be kind of our control. See what happens, no tape. Got some protection equipment, so let's see what happens. Alright, here's attempt number 2. Went ahead and burn the fronts completely, so we'll see what happens. So even though this pipe that I used is old and brittle and it doesn't pass the hammer test, rather than breaking, it started to buckle right here. So I don't think I'm going to be able to snap this because of these burns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to put some really deep cuts, about maybe a 1/16 of an inch deep. Just really put some heavy cuts in here and see if that'll snap this. So, here we go. Okay, here's attempt number 3. I've got the heavier cuts, so we're going to see if we can get this thing to break. Alright, so I was hoping to have this bow break while strung. That hasn't happened, so I'm going to resort to hitting it with a hammer. I've got my anvil. I'm going to hit this with a hammer and see what happens, and then we'll get to see how it breaks, and then we'll compare that to the duct tape. So, here we go. So here we have no duct tape. Okay. So as you can see, we've got a bunch of little pieces. There's a couple more down there. And you can see how it broke. Actually, this kind of whole center section shattered. Now, keep in mind, this is pipe that failed the hammer test to begin with. So next up is duct tape, front and back. And the duct tape I'm using is just the regular Duct brand colored duct tape. There we go. Nice. You can see, wow, that actually worked pretty good. Look at that. So you can see it impacted, and there's lots of pieces, and this whole section is gone, but it's actually held it in, and this portion hasn't broken. I'm going to hit it in another spot and see if it still holds. Okay, this time I've got a full break, but it's held everything together. Look at that. I can pull out the pieces, but the tape is holding onto them pretty well. Okay, next up, duct tape on back only. Here we go. Okay, so you can see, again, it held it together. Quite a bit broke out of the back here, or out of the belly. Here's some of it. There's other pieces. And finally, we have a full overlapping spiral. Here we go. There you go. Here you can see it completely smashed the back. The belly is still half intact, but it's held everything in place. Let's try another hit. Another complete break. Again, it's contained it. And it's not even tearing through this time. Okay, let's try here. And here the hammer smashed through the tape, but still It's holding everything in place. And it's a complete break. So in conclusion, while we didn't get to see how the bows naturally broke, I do feel that this is pretty indicative of what would happen in a break. Because just in my personal experience, I've never seen a bow shatter quite as bad as when it got hit by this hammer. So you can see with this bow without any duct tape, all the pieces went flying. You know, there were a lot of little pieces, they're all missing, they all went flying, and the bow just completely broke apart. Now, one of the things that I think is really neat about the duct tape is that while I have done tests like this before, and I kind of expected this to happen, one of the cool things is that, especially evident in this, the strike happened here, and you can see everything broke. But unlike this, the shatter happened in the front, and this pipe, because it didn't have anything to hold it together, it traveled to the back and the whole thing broke apart. But here you can see the damage happened here, and there was no crack on the back. Then when I hit it again, you could see there was slight cracking on the back. But again, up here it's still fairly solid. It's still holding together. So both of these, you know, I really did a lot of damage to the pipe, but again, the tape held everything together, which is really nice. So now that we've gone over the results, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about why you'd want to cover a bow up. As you saw in the test, it helped contain a lot of the splinters and fragments. But to be completely honest, the splinters and fragments that come off of a PVC bow are typically not as dangerous as those that come off of a wood or fiberglass bow in my experience. That said, having the bow covered, whether it be with duct tape or cloth or leather, it just helps to keep everything in, keep everything contained. But another reason why you'd want to wrap a bow is because it helps minimize that sort of damage in the first place. Now in the test you saw I cut into the back of the bow, and the reason is that if you have a deep enough cut in the back of the bow, even if the pipe is fine and everything is great, it could fail there. Now if your pipe isn't brittle, what'll probably happen is it'll fold right in that spot. If your pipe is brittle, it could explode. When you wrap the bow, you help prevent those little scratches, because PVC is very hard, so when something hits it or something digs into it, unlike wood which dents, PVC just scrapes off. So covering it with something soft that can take the hit, take the abrasion, really makes a big difference. Now here's an example of a bow covered in leather. Now this is the bow I show how to make in my book, Simple PVC Pipe Bows. And to be perfectly honest, duct tape is actually one of my favorite finishes for bows that are going to be thrown around, abused. And this bow's been used a lot at different youth events where kids and even adults were trying out archery for the first time. And there were a lot of dry fires, a lot of overdraws. And it's just a way to keep the bow from getting scratched up, and if anything ever does happen, it helps to contain it. Now one of the downsides to duct taping a bow like this is that you can lose performance, though typically if you're dealing with a shorter bow like this, it's going to be minimal. This bow probably lost about 1 foot per second, but that's on average, and to be honest, it shot pretty much the same before and after taping. Now I have seen longer bows, especially 1-inch pipe bows, lose a bit of speed, about 5 feet per second, when being completely duct taped, just because they're already inefficient to begin with. So that's it. I hope you guys found this video informative, and I'm planning on doing more experiments with different types of material that you can put on a bow to minimize damage. And I'm also thinking about doing more videos on how to fix common problems with PVC pipe bows, as well as how to prevent some of the common causes of catastrophic failure. And especially once the temperature starts dropping again and things get cold, we can start going into dealing with low temperatures. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.